This is an original story directly from my own experience, and it's called Going Off Grid. Perhaps we should all give it a try, although almost impossible now these days to go off grid for a few minutes. However, I managed to do this for a month, 4 weeks and a bit. And if you do this, you will feel stuff with no distractions. That's what's important, no other input. So I've done this and I have led by example. That is, I cycled all around Scotland using pedal power, my legs, and camped out in the wilds each night in a wee tent. I did this for 4 weeks with no contact whatsoever with anyone. I had no phone with me or radio or any other form of communication for a whole month. I was completely cut off. And if you do this, you will experience things deep in your soul. I set off from the bustling centre of Glasgow, heading along the busy A803 on my bicycle, all packed up. Panniers at the front and back, and a handlebar bag as well. I headed through the built-up areas of Springburn and Bishopbriggs. After a few more miles, I began to leave the city streets behind me as I entered the much quieter country roads. I then cycled north through the villages of Torrance and Lennoxtown to finally reach the foot of the Campsie Fells. It was all peaceful there, and so I camped overnight in the glen, pitching my tent right next to the stream, which I could hear through the night, and that was actually quite comforting, very close to nature. It was midsummer, with long days, mid-June to mid-July, and so I carried on with my epic journey, pedalling on to Aberfoyle, Tyndrum, then over Rannochmoor and down into Glencoe. It was a great cycle run after having climbed up all the way to about 1,200 feet up on the Rannochmoor plain. That cycle run right down into Glencoe was fantastic. Almost a 3 or 4 or 5 miles just downhill, no effort, just hanging onto your bicycle, like sitting on a coat hanger as you sped down with all this weight of what I'd packed on there. Had my food, my accommodation, the tent, and my clothes all on the bicycle. 60 pounds of weight. So I kept on cycling north, and I finally arrived at Durness Lighthouse on the extreme northwest point of the mainland. Next I cycled back south again, around Loch Hugh, heading for Kill of Lochalsh. I took the ferry over to Skye, no bridge at the time, cycling around the whole island, which is really big, and walking the Store Ridge, touching the old manor store. Eventually, I travelled south and east and passed through Dunfermline before pedalling over the bridge to Edinburgh. It was a 1,000-mile trip in total. Always outside, living in a tent. The solitude of the journey changed my perspective on life. Everything became vivid and real. Something as simple as a bottle of clear and pure water appeared fascinating to me and precious to my awakened senses. On one occasion I spent a whole day at Balmacara. It rained steadily for 12 solid hours, and so I pitched my tent and stayed inside and dry, with just a book for company. Of course I had my wee stove, a tin of food and some water, precious water. I spent that entire day reading, and I've never felt so relaxed in all my life. A few days later, after that Balmacara day, I was up at Durness and I dived off the cliffs straight into the deep dark water. I almost died as the sea was so cold. I experienced instant shock, and it was quite a struggle to get back onto the land as the current was strong and the rocks were razor sharp. They sliced my body like a shredder, but that's another story.